Hey everyone, Kristi Noem has some thoughts on the latest ICE-involved shooting in Minneapolis.
This individual who came with weapons and ammunition to stop a law enforcement operation of federal law enforcement officers committed an act of domestic terrorism. That's the facts.
I'm Rich Lowry of National Review, and if you've watched any of my videos lately, you know I'm a strong supporter of ICE. I think we need to drastically diminish the illegal immigrant population in this country. I think it is reprehensible, the resistance we've seen to ICE on the streets in Minneapolis. All that said, the way that Kristi Noem has handled these last couple of ICE-involved shootings in Minneapolis is just terrible. She either doesn't know what she's talking about, or she's being deliberately deceptive, or maybe some of both. But whatever, it is completely counterproductive for the administration's purposes. Alex Preddy, you can argue that he's foolhardy, that he was reckless, that he created the predicate for that terrible tragedy where he shot on the street, but he wasn't a domestic terrorist. That is absurd. Here's more from Noem.
This looks like a situation where an individual arrived at this scene to inflict maximum damage on individuals and to kill law enforcement.
Now, there's no indication whatsoever that he was showing up to kill law enforcement. He was showing up, according to all the evidence we've seen, and when the facts change, I'm happy to change my mind always, but showing up to monitor and harass ICE the way a lot of these agitators do. Shouldn't do it, wrong to do it. He also had a gun on him. You don't show up with a gun in such a situation. Certainly you don't get entangled with law enforcement unnecessarily when you have a gun. That was reckless, put his life in danger, obviously, and endangered others. Never should have done it. But that doesn't mean he was there to kill law enforcement. She's making it up, and there are a couple problems with making it up. One, making up is always wrong on the merits. Two, in this day and age, when you have dozens of videos that everyone's going to see themselves, they will realize that you are making it up. But apparently Noem just can't help herself. Here she is in another clip.
This individual went and impeded their law enforcement operations, attacked those officers, had a weapon on him and dozens of rounds of ammunition, wishing to inflict harm on these officers, brandishing like that and impeding their work that they were doing.
Again, this is completely wrong. He wasn't brandishing his weapon. He was doing the complete opposite. It was in his holster, and part of the problem is the officers weren't aware of the weapon until they discovered it during a struggle. So why say he was brandishing it when he wasn't saying he was brandishing it? If you're not sure at the time whether he was brandishing it or not, don't commit yourself one way or the other whether he was brandishing. All she needed to do was say, look, this guy interfered with law enforcement. There was a chaotic struggle. He was discovered to have a weapon, and officers or an officer fired in what we presume they believed was self-defense, and the investigation is ongoing. That's all you need to say. All that is accurate, and all of it is entirely defensible, but she can't help herself. And when she comes up with these fantastical accounts, it creates dozens and dozens of headlines in the media that say video contradicts official account of shooting. And unfortunately, these headlines are accurate because she's an official and her account is way off base. And when she says these fantastical things, it also puts more responsible, incredible administration officials in a tight spot when they have to contradict her, like Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche.
I don't think anybody thinks that they were comparing what happened on Saturday to the legal definition of domestic terrorism.
This is a pattern for Noem. She did exactly the same thing after the shooting of Renee Good.
Facts of the situation are that the vehicle was weaponized and it attacked the law enforcement officer. He defended himself and he defended those individuals around him. That is the definition. When there is something that is weaponized to use against the public and law enforcement, that is an act of domestic terrorism. It happened in our shores. It happened here in our country. You don't get to change the facts just because you don't like them.
Again, this just isn't true. Renee Good tried to obstruct law enforcement, never should have done it. She created a hazardous situation for the officers and for herself, never should have done it. Terrible tragedy results. That's all you have to say. She wasn't a domestic terrorist. She didn't set out to kill federal law enforcement. And again, you can see here how a more serious and credible voice like Tom Homan, when he's pressed in public about what Noem is saying, he refuses to back her up because he's a professional who actually knows what he's doing and saying.
Was Secretary Noem correct to label her a domestic terrorist, Mr. Homan?
Look,
we don't know what, I don't know what Secretary Noem knows and what I know. I can tell you is what they did is illegal. And if you look up this definition of terrorism, it certainly could fall within that definition if you look at the definition of terrorism.
But you don't have evidence.
Pardon me?
You don't have evidence that she's a domestic terrorist.
I don't know what Secretary has that I don't. I'm not going to judge what the Secretary says.
Now, there are indications that Homan is going to supplant Noem in Minneapolis, and that'd be a very good thing. Immigration enforcement, both at the border and interior, is a core commitment of the administration, but it presents really difficult political and PR issues, and there are indications they are really behind the eight ball in terms of those things. And you can't have a high-profile member of your own team making it even more difficult unnecessarily. And sad to say, that's exactly what Kristi Noem has done the last couple of weeks. I'm Rich Lowry, over and out.